Global Transformation Astrology, GTA, with William Stickevers.
So the recent wildfire in Los Angeles, which is still ongoing, started on January 7th, 2025, with the Palisades Fire igniting near the Pacific Palisades neighborhood around 10:45 a.m. And so this fire rapidly expanded, leading to mandatory evacuations along sections of the Pacific Coast Highway and surrounding areas. And on the same day, the Eaton fire started in the hills above Altadena in northern Los Angeles County. So by January 9th, it had burned more than 16 square miles and destroyed almost 1,000 structures. And then we've had subsequent fires that include the Hearst Fire, which began on January 7th, and the Sunset Fire, which started on January 8th in the Hollywood Hills near Runyon Canyon Park. And the Sunset Fire led to the evacuation orders for tens of thousands of people, but was fully contained by January 9th. As of today, these wildfires have collectively burned over 35,000 acres, destroyed more than 10,000 structures, and has resulted in at least 10 fatalities. So we take a look here, the Palisades Fire for January 7th, 2025, Pacific Palisades. And we note here at 10:45, we see 00 Aries rising right on the world point with the North Node right on the ascendant. So that would indicate to me that this is something that's going to have a global impact, or it's a global wake-up call moment. Now, we also note here that we see Mars at 29 degrees of Cancer going retrograde, opposing Pluto right here in Aquarius. So we could see that very strong Mars-Pluto alignment here. And we see the moon is also in a T-square configuration at 28 degrees of Aries, squaring that Mars at 29 degrees of Cancer in opposition with Pluto. So we have a perfect T-square alignment in formation at the time that the Pacific Palisades wildfire commenced. So let's just go through it here. We had fierce 99-mile-per-hour winds fueling chaos in LA's most destructive disaster in history. 1.5 million without power. Fire hydrants run dry as firemen crews, struggle to contain the blaze. We have 0% containment, at least for over 24 hours, where thousands were forced to flee. So there was no control over the fire. Very Mars-Pluto, no control, zero containment, right? Displacing over 200,000 residents, abandoned vehicles, blocking escape routes, where bulldozers were forced to clear the way. Very interesting, right? The clearing away, where traffic jams and abandoned cars clogged all evacuation routes, forcing emergency crews to deploy bulldozers to basically clear them. And then we see iconic landmarks reduced to ashes, people stating, quote, "It looks like Mars," and the LAPD warning against looting. Multiple arrests have already been made. And then we see frustrations mount as residents slam LA mayor, reportedly abroad in Guyana, right? So we're seeing public anger growing as the LA mayor faces criticism for being absent during the crisis. And by the numbers, we have 30,000 acres burned, 10,300 plus structures destroyed, at least 10 people dead, 135 billion in damages, and again, 200,000 displaced from their homes. So the catastrophe was driven by fierce winds that exacerbated by systemic shortcomings, marking the most destructive disaster in LA history. Now, just want to note here, when we described back the Mars-Pluto, we talked about the potential for unrest and protest. And this is going to be very, very present and prevalent with us over the next several months as we find out more about what led up to this fire. So you could see we get a capitulation of it, and then we get a recapitulation. So will that be another even more destructive fire? That is the question. So this is equivalent to a tactical nuclear strike. So a strategic nuclear strike would take out, all of LA. A tactical nuclear strike would be equivalent to the type of destruction we just witnessed over the past 48 hours. So that's the power of this Mars-Pluto alignment. And the fact that the North Node is on the world axis is telling us that this is a bigger event, and the political blowback from this, the social blowback, and the financial blowback will be massive. So one of the big things that comes out here is no water to fight the raging wildfire. The Pacific Palisades Reservoir was empty and offline when the firestorm exploded. According to the LA Times, the reservoir holds 117 million gallons of water. The reservoir would have given firefighters ample pressure to effectively fight the blaze. The Department of Water and Power officials have admitted the reservoir being offline likely contributed to the dry fire hydrants and low water pressure. And the Los Angeles Fire Department chief, she basically called out the city for having no water in the Santa Ynez Reservoir, stating to a reporter asking, did the city of Los Angeles fail you and your department? And Kristen Crowley, the fire chief, states, it is my job to stand up as a chief and exactly say what the fire department needs. And the reporter says, asking again, did they fail you? And Crowley says, yes. So they are turning on each other. We're going to see public officials pointing fingers at each other. And again, the protests, the disappointment, the anger, the rage, all of that Mars-Pluto stuff, there was like a sense of fate and destiny at work here. And basically what we're seeing here is the complete destruction, right? California's infrastructure and emergency response, from broken fire hydrants to outdated power grids. The state appears ill-equipped to handle wildfire-prone environment. So we see this is before, this is after, and what it comes down to is we see an entire Los Angeles neighborhood no longer exist. So here's what I believe, looking at the evidence here and keeping it within the context of the Mars-Pluto alignment. And before I go into it, note here, we take Los Angeles, California. We take the date here for September 4th, 1781 at 12 p.m., Los Angeles, California. What we note here is that Los Angeles is going through a Pluto return, and we have a Mars-Pluto opposition by transit hitting off the natal Pluto of Los Angeles. And we're going to see that Mars-Pluto come into alignment again, doing a triple hit on the Los Angeles County inception chart. The Mars-Pluto alignment has cast a stark spotlight on California's really glaring deficiencies in infrastructure, deficiencies in emergency response. So while California's wildfire crisis is not new, it has reached a new critical juncture demanding immediate attention and decisive action to prevent or to contain an existential crisis, meaning if the fire wasn't contained or it does not become contained, it could consume the entire county of Los Angeles. I know that sounds like a bit of hyperbole, and maybe to some degree it is, but when I say archetypally speaking, and based on the evidence that we have thus far, we could have seen this fire continue to spread and destroy a majority of the city. Now, this is all interesting because Proposition 1 passed in 2014 to allocate billions of dollars for new reservoirs remain largely unfulfilled, leaving communities vulnerable to water shortages during emergencies. Compounding the issue was the neglect of forestry management practices that were once pivotal in mitigating wildfire risk. Controlled burns and mandatory brush cleanups, once standard, have drastically diminished due to cutbacks both at the state and municipal level in recent years. And as one observer aptly put it, California is a tinderbox, highlighting both the predictability of these fire crises and the persistent lack of proactive measures that address them. Governor Gavin Newsom's leadership has come under scrutiny for its failure to prioritize fire prevention. Statewide budget cuts to fire departments have weakened resources for training, prevention, and large-scale emergency responses. Adding to this controversy was Newsom's 2022 decision to donate fire equipment to Ukraine while California communities struggle to manage their own wildfire crises. The economic toll of these wildfires is staggering, with rebuilding efforts often stymied by California bureaucratic red tape. Meanwhile, the environmental impact is equally devastating as fire destroys wildlife habitats, pollutes ecosystems, and worsens air quality. This raises a critical question. How is this good for the environment? And this is a poignant irony in a state that champions itself as a leader in environmentalism. So California urgently needs better allocation of resources, improved infrastructure, and a renewed focus on fire prevention and forestry management. How many more lives must be lost, and how many more homes must be burned before the state's leadership takes meaningful action? As wildfires continue to devastate communities, it's imperative for leaders to prioritize prevention and preparedness to protect lives, homes, and the environment. So the harsh Mars-Pluto reality is that countless middle-class and even well-off families are facing homelessness for years to come. Beyond the immediate devastation, the environmental impact of these disasters could well signal a broader national downturn. The looming question remains, how long can these crises go unaddressed before the ripple effects reshape the nation's economic and societal fabric? Probably not long.
To watch the full presentation and more like this on geopolitics, the economy, and world events from an archetypal and mundane astrological perspective, join the Global Transformation Astrology membership. Go to gta.williamstickevers.com. Become a GTA member today.